Welcome back to World Talks. Now, Russian forces have started a fire at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Telegram on Sunday. Zelensky posted a video showing a large plume of smoke coming out of one of the plant's towers. That fire has since been extinguished, but the damage has been done. Now, at the same time, Ukrainian forces have advanced 30 kilometers into Russia, and some say they may target the Kursk nuclear power plant as payback for Russia's long-running seizure of Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So what does all this mean for Europe's energy security? We'll discuss in a second with our guest. And joining us now is Wojciech Jakóbik, editor-in-chief of Business Alert PL. Good morning and welcome to TVP World.
Hi, great to be here.
So now let's start with the latest, which is that fire that is said to have been started by the Russians at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. We've learned that since then it has been put out, but there has been some damage that has been done. Now, what do you make of all this? Do you think this is payback from the Russians for the Ukrainians starting their incursion into Kursk? And how might this affect Europe's energy security?
So there is no factual threat to energy security, there is no radiation threat, there is only Russian propaganda, and its aims are the same as it was in the past. First of all, Russians want to create panic around Ukrainian pursuit to get to Kursk. Ukrainians have advanced into Russia, and Russians need to have some arguments against this behavior. Russians want to create panic in the West to make West stop Ukraine advancing into Russia. So this might be the first goal. The second one would be to create fear around the nuclear energy. We've seen multiple points in which Russians were using the nuclear energy incidents, fake or true, to create panic in the West, to make West go away from nuclear energy. The facts are that we've had some fire on the territory of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is occupied by Russians. All that is happening there is the responsibility of the aggressor. So Russians informed that it was a result of drone strike, and Ukrainians state that it was a result of burning of tires. It might be an intentional way of creating panic in the West by the Russians. The facts are there are no immediate threats to security of supply. There is no radiation threat. There is only Russian propaganda.
All right, and now let's go back for a second to the story which I spoke of in the explainer with Hungary, when it accused Ukraine of endangering its energy security after Ukrainian sanctions blocked Lukoil. How do you view Hungary's claims that these sanctions endanger its energy security, especially considering the recent statements by the European Commission's findings?
The real threat to security of supply is Russia. It was Lukoil's decision to declare force majeure and to stop supplies through Ukraine. There was an obvious way to keep up with the supplies. In spite of the sanctions, Ukrainians were showing that it is possible to use some intermediates to provide security of supply in spite of Lukoil sanctions, and that is what is happening right now. And all that Orban is doing is repeating Russian propaganda that it is Ukraine that is irresponsible, it is Ukraine that is responsible for lack of security of supply. The facts are the gas is flowing, the oil is flowing, and the security of supply is stable, and the only threat to security of supply is Russia. And in fact, countries like Hungary agreed to decrease reliance on Russian supplies to zero until 2027. But it is Hungary that is staying with Russian supplies in spite of warnings from European Commission, from countries like Poland.
So now, why do you think Hungary is still continuing to do this? When do you think we might see it change its ways?
So it might be a tactical move to stay with short-term gains coming from cheap resources from Russia, but it is a long-term threat to Hungary's security of supply, to its foreign policy, because there could be you need only a one small incident for Russians to have a pretext to stop the supplies of oil, of gas. We've had multiple examples of such behavior from Russia in the past, lately during the energy crunch, which was a responsibility of Russian Gazprom, which was decreasing the amount of natural gas coming to Europe, and it is Gazprom which is responsible for the energy crunch. So the way to provide the long-term security of supply is to decrease reliance on Russia, not to increase it. But Viktor Orban needs cheap resources to lead its internal policy, which is controversial. It needs the public support, so it is using the Russian propaganda for the sake of his internal policy.
And now, do you think with this Ukrainian incursion into Kursk, might we see Russia take any retaliatory actions in response to this action by Ukraine?
Of course, Russia is using any means to retaliate, especially when it is losing on the propaganda war, because the main hit by Ukrainians was made into this myth of strong Russian superpower, which is doing perfectly fine in Ukraine. The facts are that the Russian aggression moved into Russian territory, as President Zelensky said, and it is a big loss for Vladimir Putin, for Russian propaganda. So we will see multiple examples of Russian narrative that everything is under control on one hand, and on the other hand that Ukraine is losing. We might see some new false information about the situation in Ukraine soon.
So now gas is currently the most expensive since it's been in December of 2023. Now the Ukrainian army has taken over this Russian town of Sudzha in the Kursk Oblast, where there is an intake point for the gas pipeline of the same name. So how did this takeover of the installation affect the gas prices in Europe?
It's only emotion, because the facts on the ground are that the gas supplies are stable. We have a stable supply of Russian gas through Ukrainian territory since the beginning of the conflict. In spite of what is happening, Ukraine is providing full security of supply of Russian fuels through its territory. It is paradoxical, but it is true. You see it in numbers. But we cannot omit the emotions on the market, especially when you have stocks investors which are not fully informed. They are disinformed by Russia, creating panic around the gas supplies through Ukraine. The facts are there are no immediate threats to gas supply through Ukraine, and the gas is flowing. So the price increase we see is all about the emotions.
So now, just how important is it that, let's say, in situations like this, the emotions continue to remain calm and not, like you said, run high?
So it is important to be calm and to look at numbers, and numbers show after the European Commission analysis that there is a full security of supply for countries like Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, all the Gazprom clients which are staying with Russian gas in spite of Russian aggression in Ukraine. In case there is a lack of Russian supply, European Commission could use the gas reserves, which are record high this summer, again after the summer before that we've had the record gas reserves for the winter. And you could also use different sources of natural gas, which are secured by the common gas purchases introduced by European Commission last year. So there is no immediate threat to gas supply. There are only emotions, and they are fueled by Russian propaganda.
So now let's still for a second go back to Hungary and Slovakia. What potential consequences do you foresee for these countries in terms of their energy policies and relationships? Well, you've mentioned a bit with Russia, but with Russia and the EU.
So if there's no coming back to status quo, if there is no reset in energy relations between European Union and Russia, we would see a follow-up when it comes to the diversification of gas supplies, even those Hungarians, which are pro-Russian in their energy policy, are looking for natural gas in Azerbaijan, and it is good for the security of supply. The incidents we've seen lately are only another argument to decrease reliance on Russian supplies. It should go to zero until 2027, according to REPowerEU common European plan. So we need to introduce it. Austrians are doing so. Hungarians, Slovakians, Czechs should follow.
And now, what about, how would you describe the situation of Poland amidst all of this that is taking place? Is Poland safe in terms of its energy resources?
Okay. So first of all, Poland is fully safe when it comes to oil and gas supplies. It is not importing any natural gas, any oil from Russia since 2023, and that's good for our security of supply. Moreover, Poland could be an intermediate in non-Russian hydrocarbon supplies to countries like Hungary, Austria, countries of Central Europe, which are staying with Gazprom to this day. So we could even help our neighbors by providing our infrastructure. It is a win-win scenario. We could make money on this cooperation and decrease our reliance by increasing our security of supply. So why shouldn't we do that? We should do that, and all you need for that is a political will, and unfortunately Budapest is lacking this will.
So now, do you think, I mean, is there anything else that can be done in order to somehow try and persuade Budapest to change its mind?
The best motivator is Vladimir Putin, which is creating crisis after crisis, and all you need to do is to take lesson from that, and that is the hardest part for Budapest, as we can see.
And do you think now, when it comes to, we of course spoke about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, then of course there is also the plant in Kursk. Do you think it is possible for the Ukrainians, as their incursion continues, to maybe take over that power plant? And if that were to happen, what would it mean for the energy situation in Europe? Would it be a matter of emotions, or do you think it would be something more serious?
You need further successes from Ukraine to even think about controlling the Kursk nuclear power plant. They are far from this object. They would need to create some stability on the ground to control this place, but it is possible. We can see that in spite of war going on in Ukraine, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was stabilized. It is occupied by Russians, but it is not having any nuclear incidents. All you can see is the fog of war and some propaganda, but the facts on the ground are that nuclear objects could stay safe even in spite of war going on all around the place. So if Ukrainians are able to stabilize the front around the Kursk nuclear power plant, they could think of stabilizing the security of supply of this object, and sometime in future they could even think about producing energy, but we are far from this point.
All right, well, with that insight into the future, we'll end it there. Wojciech Jakóbik, editor-in-chief of Business Alert PL, was our guest today. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on TVP World this morning. And that's a wrap for this edition of World Talks. But as always, do stay tuned to TVP World for more breaking news and updates and interviews like this one. Thanks for watching.